So hello and welcome to our next methods chat. We are very happy to welcome Denis Weger today here as an expert in educational design research. He's from the University of Vienna and is currently working as a postdoc at the Language Teaching and Learning Lab. He did his doctoral degree at the University of Vienna about teacher skill development for multilingual language awareness and teaching, and his current research areas are pre-service teachers' professional development, individual and social multilingualism, intervention research, and of course, educational design research. Welcome, Denis, and let's start the methods chat with a short introduction into the methodology. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Sylvia, for the invitation and for the introduction. Yeah, my name is Denis, speaking to you from the University of Vienna at the moment. And yeah, as I didn't know who would come and what these people would know about design research, I have prepared like 5 slides with the very, very basic information about educational design research, because I thought I would give the foundation, and then we could discuss more in detail, maybe also aspects related to your research. Or if you want, I can then afterwards also go into details of my own research, because I have written my PhD, my dissertation, using educational design research. So then let's start with my presentation. Where can I share the... I think, Sylvia, you still have to you need to give me the host rights so that I can share my screen, please.
Sorry, just a moment.
Yeah.
Okay, it should work now.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, sorry. Now it's on desktop too. So, and here we go. Okay, so tackling challenges in education with educational design research. Yeah, if I look at to this side, I have my second screen here. So just that you know, where I'm a little bit changing or jumping here and there. So design research is a response to the following criticism: that we have on one side theory, educational theory, and on the other side we do have educational practice, and that there is not much interaction, and that design research emerged mainly in response to criticism of the lack of practical application of empirically and analytically orientated research. So educational research aims to bring these two, theory and practice, together. Here is a short definition of educational design research, where the main characteristics are also already mentioned. If you please read through this short quote. So educational design research is characterized by the goal of combining the development of innovative solutions for practical educational problems with the generation of scientific knowledge. And here there are already mentioned the 3 main aspects or characteristics of educational design research. It's that you start from a practical educational problem. Yeah, in my case, for example, the practical educational problem was that here in Austria, multilingual students or migration-related multilingual students at school, they face more obstacles to their educational success than monolingual students. That was the problem. They are somehow discriminated. And that was the educational problem that I wanted to tackle somehow. Then the other aspect of educational design research is, once you have identified this educational problem, you develop an innovative solution for this problem. And using this solution, you generate scientific knowledge. So these are the 3 main aspects. because as I said, the goal is to bring together educational theory, educational research, and educational practice. Design research as a research approach is like that's the quote that always comes up by Plumb 2007, the systematic study of designing, developing, and evaluating educational interventions. And in this approach, the development and the evaluation, or design and development, it's always meant together, the development and the evaluation of interventions, they are equally important. Then there is, you can see a continuum between research for, on, or through interventions. What do I mean with that? It should be clearer with this figure. Educational design research is typically conducted here, like for interventions. For example, that's on the left-hand side. You do research on an existing situation because, for example, you want to figure out how something works, or what kind of, or why, for example, in my case, multilingual students do worse at school than monolingual students. So you would need, if there is no research, if there has no research been done before, you would have to do the research to find out what could the problem be and how it could be solved. Then once you have some information on the existing situation, you could do research on interventions, where you then design an intervention, you implement the intervention, and you really do the research on which aspects of the intervention work and how you could maybe improve them. That where in this case, in the case of research on intervention, you really do the research, you look very closely at the intervention. And then the third aspect, or the third part of this continuum, is the research through interventions, where you specifically look at the outcomes of the intervention. So these are the three that's the continuum. And I, just for your information, I chose, or my PhD was on for the third part, I did my research on, it was research through interventions, because I mainly looked at the outcomes of my intervention. And before one starts with the educational design research project, for me, it helped very much to become, to make clear what my focus is, or where it's mostly focused on. Then a typical research, or a guiding research question or example could be, for an educational research project, how should the intervention in context X be designed in order to achieve teaching learning objective Y? And sub-questions, or 4 aspects that one should, in this case, in relation to this research question, one should consider are, as a starting point, what is the educational problem and what is the resulting teaching and learning objective? Yeah. Which problem do I want to tackle? Then what is the content of the intervention? You know, for example, in my case, I then created a teacher education seminar for pre-service teachers on multilingualism in education, and I decided, like, okay, what's important for them to know and to be able to do. So I chose the content of the intervention. The second question is, how should the intervention be designed didactically? Yeah, how do we design the intervention that it's really sustainable? In my case, I focused very much on promoting teacher noticing, so the use of videos and videotaped classroom situations, which I discussed with my students, because there's lots of research on this kind of teacher education. And then the third one is, how can the intervention be empirically evaluated? In my case, I had a pre and post test with post interviews. Yeah, that was already, that were my 5 slides. I can then afterwards go into detail. Just 2 suggestions. There is one, like that's the, let's say, the Bible for educational design research by McKinney and Reeves. They are now in the second, it's now in the second edition. The first edition was published in 2012. That's from 2019. And the other one, very helpful, is Design Research in Education, a practical guide for early career researchers. In this book, it helped me a lot during my, I mean, I use both books very much, but the second book is very helpful because there are also examples of, it's an edited volume, and there are examples of various educational design research studies in it. So you can have a look and compare a little bit these projects with your own. Yeah, and that was all for the beginning. So and now, if you have, I think we could discuss a little bit what your projects are or your plans, or if there are any questions. I have also additional slides, so we'll see.
Perfect. Thank you very much. It's a very interesting introduction into this methodology. Do you have any questions or ideas from the audience? Otherwise, I have a first question, because I was wondering how many participants would you recommend involving in this process? As you mentioned, you involve many parts.
Yeah, it's important to, before I answer the question, it's important to note that educational design research is a research approach and not a method or so. So it's not really, it's a framework you can use, and depending on what you really want to investigate, you then decide on how many participants you need and or would like to have. So in my case, I mean, it's always, I mean, educational design research always is, I mean, it's interventionist in its nature. So there is always an intervention and there is always some kind of evaluation. And the question is, how do you evaluate the intervention that your result is, I don't know, valid, yeah, or informative, yeah, but valid not because then, yeah, because, for example, when I had in my case, I had a pre and post study, and I wanted to see how does my teacher education course work, and how does the teacher noticing of my students change in respect to multilingualism in the classroom. And I had to do that. I had 52 questionnaires from pre and post, like 52 participants in the end, which I think was fine for me. Yeah. For one of my, how do you call it, Gutachten, for one of my reviewers, my PhD, it didn't seem that it was enough, but I think she didn't really, to be honest, understand, or didn't how to say, didn't really read the chapter on educational design research very carefully. To say it this way.
Okay, thank you very much. There are questions. Judith, please.
Yes, thank you so much for this very interesting introduction. I was wondering, sometimes I really appreciate design-based or design research. Although sometimes I feel working in practice with students who try to apply it. I did a lot with doctoral students, that they sometimes it is a bit like kind of a cage for them. So, for example, when you say, how should an intervention in context X be designed in order to achieve teaching learning objective Y? It really is the question whether that's the most fruitful question to ask of a specific intervention, because I also in your case, I can imagine that you just find out specific things that work and how they work and for whom they work. without basically then knowing how this intervention should be designed in order to achieve a specific learning objectives. Perhaps some other things happened. So yeah, that would be my first question. How do you see that?
Yeah, I do agree that that's like how it should be designed, or maybe a more feasible research question would be how it could be designed to work. Yeah, maybe not should, but how could it be designed to achieve the outcome one outcome I think that's feasible. Yeah, but the thing really is you have, wait, I have an additional slide on that. Wait, I share my screen again. Boom, 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 one moment. I mean, you have, if in the educational design research cycle, you see here, that's in McKinney-Reeves, that's not from McKinney-Reeves because they have it more in detail, but that's like a more approachable depiction of the educational design research cycle. You start with, if you start on the top with a specific problem, you have a problem statement and you come across this educational problem. Then you evaluate literature and experience to create a theoretical frame of reference, where an example here in my case, I read about multilingualism in education, multilingual didactics on the one hand to figure out what the content of this intervention could be. And then on the other hand, I read and spoke a lot with colleagues about how a teacher education course could be made the most efficient or sustainable. Yeah, and from this I created my theoretical framework for frame of reference. And then that's now I hope at least to come to your question. And then one creates a prototype of the intervention. And this prototype you test and you evaluate formatively to see how it works or what could be improved, how it works or what could be improved. And then this could be, you can, I don't know, it depends on how much time and money you have and how many prototypes you want to try and test. And then in the end, when you think the prototype is fit, or your intervention is good enough, let's say, because it will never, as in education, everyone I think in education knows that we would never, nothing is ever perfect. Yeah, but when once you think that an intervention is good enough to achieve your goals, then you implement it, and you implement it again, and you evaluate it summatively to see what's the outcome. If your focus is on the research through intervention, yeah, if your focus is on research on intervention, then you could already stop with the with the prototype. Yeah, and then you hand it over to someone else who then could use your prototype and go on and test it in another way.
Okay. Yes, I do have a follow-up question, but perhaps Carla also has a question. So, okay. Well, my point was, you said yes, how it could work, and I think that's already an improvement over how it should. But also, then still, in order to achieve teaching learning objective, why I personally would say, well, perhaps again, it's still possible that your intervention shows that some teaching learning objective is reached, but it's not why. And in addition, also your last slide also showed me one thing that I discovered in practice, that is that people start to think about, oh, what are my design principles? And that becomes a problem for them. I mean, it's okay, but it really becomes a problem. That what are my design principles? What are my design principles, instead of looking at their interventions? So but if you leave out these ingredients and make them a bit looser, then the question is whether it's still design research. It's intervention research for sure, but whether it's design research, I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, the borders are blurry, and I don't know if yeah. No, and that about the I also thought so much about design principles during my research process, and then in the end it was quite it wasn't, once I had almost finished and it was the last chapter I had to write in my thesis, then it was quite easy to write them down. But yeah, one shouldn't think about too much during the construct or during the design of the intervention. That's true. Yeah, and actually I read, which actually was quite depressing sometimes, because during my PhD I read a couple of papers on education design research where experts, obviously, on education design research doubted that it was feasible for a PhD because it would take too much time. Yeah, but I wouldn't agree actually, because you don't have to go through the whole design circle all the time, and it's really just a matter of focus. That's why, if I wait, I share it again. That's why I found it it seems very, how to say, it seems very not very important. Yeah, but I mean this here, yeah, to be the figure. Yeah, it's very important, I think, to be clear about what my focus is. Is it for intervention, on intervention, or through intervention? And what do I focus on? Yeah, because sometimes when I spoke or when I speak to people, they think educational design research has to be at least both on intervention and through intervention at the same level, and that doesn't have to be. That's not true. Yeah, or many would disagree, let's say. And this aspect, by the way, the aspect for interventions is a rather new one. McKenny Reeves have it in the second edition now of their book. Before that, it was only on interventions and through interventions. Yeah. So, Carla, please.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation. It just keeps popping up the similarity with the action research. And I'm not really sure what it's the boundary, if it's any, or maybe action research is part of design-based research. I'm really confused, and sometimes seems that we are creating different names for the same things. So, and I'm not an expert on it, so maybe you're capable of drawing the line.
No. Yeah, I'm also, if it comes to action research, I'm also always a little bit confused. Because it's very similar to educational design research, and we do a lot, like my colleague, or here we do a lot, or many people do action research, and there is, like in the book from Arthur Becker, there is a table comparing action research and design research. Yeah, and I found it, and it's the main. Let me just. Yeah, there are very few differences between both of them. One of the main differences, one easiest to grasp, I think, is that in design research, or in action research, the researcher can only be participant, because in action research you always do research on your own action. And in design research, you can collaborate with a teacher, and you don't do the teaching, yeah. But then evaluate together. You design together with the teacher. You design an intervention, for example, at school, and you design it together, and then he or she implements the intervention, and then you together do the evaluation, for example. That's one difference, and. Yeah, and then according to Becker, in design research, you try to focus a little bit more on the research output than in action research, which I personally wouldn't say so, but
yeah. Okay, so action research is more like you need an improvement in the classroom, and you evaluate the intervention, and not from a research side of it, but just you might, I don't know if I make myself clear, but I think I understood.
Now, I think actually the main difference really is that in action research you do also the teaching or the intervention, and design research you don't, and maybe the design process is a little bit different. But I don't know action research good enough, because in educational design research there is like this like if it comes to the design or the development of the intervention, you have this stage of like prototyping, and then there are 3 stages which I need to look up. But there are certain stages you usually do, and then you implement the prototype or the intervention. And I don't know if that's the case in action research.
Okay, yeah, I know there's several cycles of going back and forth.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a prototype, but it's named a pilot, so
Yeah, it's okay.
would be like the same.
Yeah.
But I think I've seen action research with the researcher inside also the intervention. So maybe it was not action research.
Yeah, maybe it's not. Yeah, and as you said, maybe we don't really need another term. Maybe it's more or less the same. To be honest, I couldn't say. Yeah, I mean, maybe something that's I read that's rather typical for educational design research is but maybe it's also for action research, which I really don't really know. Show another slide, is that for the evaluation, for example, you can, I mean, you don't have to, but you can have like this divide, or you separate evaluation phase, implementation phase, specific focus of the evaluation, frequently used methods, which here you have the alpha phase. It comes from informatics, yeah. And in the first phase, in the alpha phase, before implementing a planned intervention, you would focus, for example, on the structure of the intervention, on its coherence or feasibility in a certain context. And to do so, you do document analysis or focus groups, or discuss with colleagues, yeah, like interviews or so. In the beta phase, which is during or after the implementation of the preliminary intervention of the prototype, you then focus on the context, like the local conditions and so on, and how it works in the local conditions, using observations and interviews. But I think pretty much it's adaptable also for action research. I don't know. And then in the gamma phase, it's then during or after the implementation of the consolidated intervention, not the prototype anymore, where you then focus on the effect, so of the impact or the efficiency of the intervention with pre and post tests. That's what I did in the end. Because my focus was on as I said already, on the research through intervention. And then you have to decide whether the type of evaluation is more formative or more summative. Yeah, and at some point you have to decide. I mean, in my case, as I had to develop the intervention. I also evaluated the prototype formatively, and at some point you need to say, okay, to decide when to go on to the summative evaluation if you really want to do the research through intervention. Yeah, I mean, that I don't know. It's probably similar to action research, but that's something. This table helped me quite a lot.
Yes, it does. I don't know action research that much to know that's something they use, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there other questions? You did. Yes, please.
Only if no other people have questions at this moment. Well, there was one thing I would like to add, which is that also according to Weger, it is the focus on the theory, on the instructional theory, that's also distinguishes design research from action research, because in action research it's about solving the problem, whereas in design research it is about also the instructional theory, and that's also these design principles where so many people struggle with.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's what I meant with a stronger focus on the research output. Yeah, that you have this. Yeah, no, but
okay.
you said it
okay.
as I should have said it. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, no, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And then to me there is one thing, again coming back to that shoot question, that in what I, for example, find very sympathetic is realistic evaluation. That's Pawson and Tilly, which is the question, what works for whom? because I think more important than establishing whether intervention has in context X an effect. We all know that in education, intervention has different effects for different people. So that to me is also always very, very important. And I was wondering how did that play a role in your study, and if so, what did come out?
No, it didn't really. I mean, I in my data, I also found that my intervention had various outcomes for various people, of course, as that's always the case. But maybe I don't know, because you're the third one to ask me this question, and maybe it's because I used to be a teacher. Yeah, and I like a teacher, like I went through teacher training myself and so on, teacher education, and maybe because of this didactic background, I just focused on the learning goals of my teacher education course that I set, and I basically tested these learning goals, or these teaching and learning goals of my teacher education course. I tested them with the pre and post test. And according to the test, these learning goals were more or less achieved by most, or not achieved, but they came closer, let's say. Yeah. And that was then good enough for me. Yeah. But not everyone reached the goals, and some didn't at all. Yeah. But for me, it was okay. And that's why I stopped then. And I didn't look at other things that they could have gained from my intervention, but I could have, but I didn't. Yeah.
No, but that's okay. It's just a different focus.
No, it's
I
not.
think.
No, but that's an important aspect, and I didn't want to rechtfertigen. I just wanted to,
yeah. And if there's still no other raised hands, I was wondering, you said you had the pre and post test, but you also had post interviews. And as I'm a mixed methods scholar, I of course wanted to know about the results. How did they relate to each other? What did you learn from doing both pre-post test and the interviews?
Yeah, it was like to be exact, it was I did stimulated recall on the post-test questionnaires with some volunteers, and it was quite interesting because in the questionnaires they didn't write the questionnaires were open. There were open questions to 4 videotaped classroom situations, and to each classroom situation they had to answer 3 open questions. And they didn't write very much in the questionnaires, but some did, but most didn't. And then in the interviews, they elaborated on quite a lot actually on their comments in the questionnaire. Also because I mean the time was set for the questionnaire. The time was set and quite narrow. And in the interviews, they had also just had more time to elaborate. And there, for example, certain beliefs came up, which was the most interesting for me. For example, there were some, how to summarize it, that there, in one interview, for example, I think that the participant didn't really learn. Or because of very strong monolingual beliefs she didn't really learn the content of my teacher education course, and she didn't want to. Yeah. But she implemented it. She took the content of the seminar, but she then, when she spoke about it, she always her argument was always, she turned them always in that way that it fit into her monolingual belief system. And that was something that only came up in the interview then, which was very interesting, these contradictions. And then I elaborated from the interviews. That was one, like the belief thing was one. And the other aspect was that I was able to elaborate certain argumentative patterns. according to which I could then evaluate a little bit the degree to how much they integrated the content of the intervention into their cognitive structures. Yeah, because because there were certain degrees of contradictions or not. Yeah, that was very interesting interviews. Yeah. And then another thing I didn't focus at all, but I wrote a paper then afterwards, is that they brought that one participant, for example, in the interview related his own language biographical experiences with the video, with one of the videos in the questionnaire, which was very interesting and which then led to a paper I have published and then a grant application we have written.
Thank you very much for this question and for the answer. When you think about your research project, what were your key challenges and how did you overcome these challenges? What are your lessons learned, maybe, of your project? Did you think about it? Did you thought about it?
Yes. Yeah. My key challenges. Well, as probably for every PhD student, is that one is very much alone for much of the time and has to take decision. Well, like one has, I wrote the monograph, so I wrote, yeah, and I have a very good supervisor, but I mean the decisions you then have always to take to decide just yourself. And then at some point I learned that I just have to decide and I can't think about every decision eternally. That was very, very important. And especially then when it came to when to like after the implementation of the prototype, the decision on when to start with the implementation of the final intervention, that was for me, that was tricky, because once I started with the final intervention, I knew that this now should really be it. Yeah, because also as my intervention, I mean, I had a teacher education course, and I wanted to evaluate it pre-post, so I had always one term to wait until I got the data. So just for data acquisition, it took me, like including the prototype, it took me 1.5 years just to gather the data. Which is quite a long time. And yeah, that's for sure one aspect. And then, yeah. Yeah, I think, yeah, then I think that's the main aspect. And then of course a lot like really choosing the method and designing the questionnaire and so on. That was also a lot of work, but yeah, it's not really.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah.
And that I thought for the first 2 years or so, I thought that I'm just not intelligent enough, but yeah, don't know, happens obviously.
Thank you, Judith.
Yes, I would still like to follow up on the idea that you talked about, the degree to which the teachers teacher education students integrated the content of the interventions into their belief system. And I was also thinking of the person who matched the content to her monolingual beliefs. That also, to me, it aligns with a research question, like how do people following this course match the contents to their belief system, and how does that change? And I was wondering, I thought, based on what you said, that this research question is something you could provide an interesting answer to based on your interviews. And then I was wondering, did you have that question? Did you do that? And the
Yes.
other question is, did you have this question at the beginning?
Yeah, I did.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Great that you bring it up. No, then it came to my mind because at the first, I started with my project in 2016. Then, at least in my academic bubble, the cognitive view on teacher competence development was very, very huge. So that's why I focused on das Professionswissen, the development of knowledge, of their knowledge, yeah, professional knowledge. That's what I did in my PhD. But then 2 years into my PhD, I came across, or I got more interested in beliefs. And then I thought, well, I already have developed the intervention. Why don't I also look at the changes in their belief system? And then after I had collected all the data with the pre and post test with the videos, I went on analyzing it, but I implemented also with the same intervention because I already had it set up. I did another pre and post test with other cohorts using Q methodology in a pre and post setting, which I'm writing a paper on now. And I found it very fascinating because that was the first time that I came in contact with Q methodology, which is a very fascinating approach to me. Yeah, and there that is very interesting because there in my data, in my Q data, I really can see kind of dynamics in this at least yeah, in the Q data, yeah, from pre to post.
Yeah, which also moves away a bit, I think, from the question, how should an intervention in context X be designed in order to achieve teaching learning objective Y?
Yeah, but still,
Which
but
is
still,
okay, which is great.
Yeah,
I mean that last question is great, I think.
Yeah, no, it's but how to say it? But for me, it's still always a guiding question, like, because I want to get my students away from their monolingual norm, yeah, and to give them a plurilingual, multilingual view on school. And so that's some kind of guiding question for me is always how do I do that? Yeah, and then on the way we will see what happens. Yeah. And hopefully something in this direction happens. Yeah. Hello, Mac. I just see you now. Such a great surprise. Sorry, we met like ages ago on a early UA conference. But
my first UA, yeah. And I adapted my coding scheme to yours, and yeah, you really helped me in the early stages of my PhD. So thank you for that. And cool. Sorry I was late to your talk, but good to see you.
Yeah. I just went through your last paper, by the way. But,
okay, yeah. just finally got published after 2 years, and yeah, I defended last month. So
wow, congratulations! Yeah, great.
Maybe I'll ask a question now, just as I have my mic off. I'm curious about this Q methodology. I don't know a lot about it, so I was curious kind of what is the process there, and how is it different from yeah, the standard way that you were coding and analyzing in your first sessions of studies?
That's wait.
Maybe a bit off topic, but if other people have design questions, then skip it for another time.
Yeah, if it's I don't know if it's okay. Should I can go into that question if it's okay. I don't know. Is it?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, because I mean that would be then like I use Q then within this educational design research framework. Wait, I have. So wait, I have just looking for a slide. Yeah, here it is. Wait, I share my screen again. In Q, does anyone who has does anyone have worked with Q here already? Yeah, you did. Yeah, no, yeah, okay. Yeah. So wait, then I shared. It's designed here. I have my Q slides. So it's a Q was specifically designed to reveal and study subjectivity within a group of people in a systematic way. Yeah. So if you want to investigate subjectivity like beliefs or attitudes or so on, then it's a very, I think, very interesting, very good methodology. Yeah, beliefs, opinions, point of views, feelings expressed in a given topic. Yeah. And then I skipped this. That's on language related education research. Yeah, the main characteristics are that you have this sorting grid. Yeah, you provide them your participants with the sorting grid where there is it's in German now, but there's the Leitfrage, the guiding questions. In this case, don't know, it's a little bit small, don't know if you can read it. You have the guiding question on the top. In this case, which statements on languages in school and education do you agree the most or the least? And then on one side, on the left, you have -4 with the least agreement, and on the right, you have the highest agreement. And then the participants are provided with statements, the so-called Q set, and they have to sort the statements within this sorting grid. And yeah, and then the Q sort, then you have, once they have sorted, they put their statements into the sorting grid. It's the viewpoint of this participant. It's a representation of the viewpoint of this participant given on this topic. And then you do data analysis, you run a factor analysis of the Q sorts, and you then can compare them. Yeah, and you only need smaller numbers of participants. It's at least that's something that Judith may know better than I. What I read a lot is then Q in itself is already some kind of mixed methods because it's quantitative and qualitative in its essence, but that's something I can't really judge. Yeah. Yeah. And there's, yeah, and then that's one Q sort now in English that I got from the pre-post beliefs test on my intervention. Yeah. But if you're interested, I can provide you with some literature. There's actually one very good book by Watson Stenner, who that's very also easy and nice to read.
Thanks.
Okay.
Dennis, I could add to this perhaps that yes, it's often called a mixed methods, but I mean I wouldn't. You can call it mixed methods, or you can call it otherwise. That's not the most important thing, I think. But what's interesting is that you can compare it to factor analysis, where with factor analysis the idea is that you cluster the factors, whereas with Q analysis and other types of Q analysis, because there are also other types than Q sorts, you cluster people with the same beliefs, and that's, I think, the huge difference, because these two types of methods are useful for different situations.
Yeah, that's a good point, because that's also why I think that's why it's called inverted factor analysis, because you cluster the people and not the variables. Yeah. And that's very interesting, because in the end you get the, like in the factor array, you get the prototypical view of a certain group of people that are clustered to this, or that are significantly loading to this queue, this sorting, typical sorting. But I'm myself very new to Q methodology, so I did it to pre-doc to learn another method. So.
Thank you very much. Yeah, very interesting. Do you have any other questions now? Any other ideas?
Maybe I will ask another question just to go back to the designing aspect. So when you decided, okay, this is the prototype that I'm going to stick with, and after a couple of iterations of improvements, and you're moving on to the final product, the final intervention, are there things that you would change now, looking back after the pre and post test and your evaluation, that you thought, oh, we should have done this to really make some kind of change in the intervention? Or are you happy with your decision? I know you said before, so you always have to stop at some point. There's never going to be a perfect solution, but are there any lessons that you would take with you next time you're doing this kind of design-based approach?
Well, I would change. I mean, the intervention I developed for my PhD, I changed in the meantime because I'm still teaching this course, but in a different way. Yeah, because for example, also the papers I had my students read are somehow outdated now, and so. I mean, the main characteristics I would say are still there. That, for example, half of the term we talk about multilingualism and epistemical multilingualism, and the other half we talk about the language, German as the language of schooling, and so on, and that it's 50-50 because of empirical studies that show otherwise. It's it's not so good. Yeah, so the main characteristics are still there, but how I fill them with, like, the content, maybe the design is still pretty much the same, but the content changed. Yeah. But what I would like to do now is what my plans for the summer are, is that I would like to start writing grant proposal or research proposal for another educational design research project. But there I would like to start really with research for interventions, because I think there is not yet an intervention, and there is not much known about the context. Yeah, because I would like to investigate like pre-service teachers abroad, like when they go abroad teaching during their study, and there is not so much research on that, and we don't know really what happens there in terms of professionalization. And but that's not the answer to your question, sorry, but
also something I was curious about.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Looking at the time, I would say that maybe we should stop the methods chat here. But if it's okay for you, Dennis, I would provide your email address for further questions, maybe. And we will also upload this methods chat on our private YouTube channel to maybe look at previous slides or previous questions. So thank you very much, Dennis, for this very interesting talk and this introduction to this methodology. It was a great insight. And we wish you all the best for your future research and would like to hear more about your research. Meg, you just, okay, sorry. That's all for now. Thank you very much. And let's see to the next methods chat, and have a nice week ahead.
Thank you very much for joining and for the invitation.
Thank you very much, Dennis.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.